All right, first rule of this channel, we not talk about this channel. Second rule of this channel, this is not legal advice. So this is going to be the roll, don't roll grift for week 6 of fantasy football. And in general, there's going to be a lot of very interesting down to the wire sit start decisions for you this weekend. And that includes Monday night. We'll talk a little bit about strategy, which is funny because this is primarily a fantasy football strategy channel when it gets down to it. So before we get into the grift proper, the Thursday night game, remember, never trust Thursday night football. San Francisco wins 36-24. They did try and throw this game away again. The Seahawks did get, I think it was like 24-7 or 24-17. It was within one score by the end. Laviska Shenault takes one to the house to start the second half. 49ers were up 16-3 at halftime. And then, obviously at that point, the Seattle gets it between one score. Jordan Mason does go down with a AC joint separation. That's the shoulder. And, at this point they're saying like day to day, which is, like your guess is as good as mine on like what to be spending. So hopefully you're rostering your cuffs, and that means like yours and somebody else's. In this case, like anybody who already picked up Isaac Guriendo, they're going to be the happy guy, at least from the standpoint of like, when you're right when it comes to like the top waiver wire claim. The one thing that I will talk a little bit more about this when we get to after waivers is Patrick Taylor. He came in and got 5 carries compared to Guriendo's 10. Guriendo was not that effective until he ripped off the 76-yarders, and then he took a seat, saying that he didn't want to score. Juice, punched one in, the fullback, vultured the work, and that, that's how it generally went down in that one. And then Kenneth Walker, not very efficient in the running game, but another like 8 for 8 in the passing game. So that's another one to be, I'm going to be looking at, if he's going to get a certain amount of consistent receiving work, that's an RB1. That's the long and short of that one when it comes down to it. All right, let's get into the grift. Only 2 weather games that I would be looking at, and that would be the Cardinals and the Packers. And I don't think this necessarily changes much of anything. If it is a weather game, like Josh Jacobs and James Conner would be the 2 primary guys that I would be looking to roll out. And weather's probably not going to change them being like mutters. And then the other one to be looking at is 52% chance rain when it comes to the Giants and the Bengals. And, if it's slight showers, I don't know if it's necessarily going to change too much of who I would be rolling out there. Probably injuries are going to be like the bigger one in that one. Vegas lines. And if I haven't talked about this already ahead of time when it comes to the channel, the biggest thing that I get out of lines when I look at them is when there's a game or Vegas saying something that I wouldn't necessarily have predicted myself. Like, I generally look at a game and I go like, this is how I would envision it going. And if Vegas sees something else, then I go like, huh. And we're going to talk about the Commanders and the Ravens here in a second when we get down to it. First game is Jaguars and Bears. This is 47.5 points. And you're looking at the Bears by like half a point, which means that Vegas doesn't have any idea how this Vegas game is going to go overall. The Jaguars have a bad defense. The Bears have a good defense. The Bears offense has been all over the place. Jaguars offense has been also somewhat unpredictable, if not good. When it comes down to it, you're looking at Evan Ingram is questionable with a hamstring. That would mean that Brenton Strange would theoretically be a streamer if you're into that type of thing. Gabe Davis popped up with a shoulder. He's questionable, and there's no injury designation on ETN. So, if you rolled out or if you went out and you spent on Tanks Bigsby, your guess is going to be as good as mine. Now, at this point in the season, I will start looking at defenses to kind of get an idea if we can like track the pattern of a defense is good or bad. Jacksonville, not good. Obviously, they're worst against the pass. So that would at least allow you to flirt with the idea of rolling out your Rome and your Keenan Allen shares in this going. I don't know if I would necessarily want to be going with Cole Kmet. I think there are better streamers than trying to guess that you're going to get like the number 4 in that offense. And then the other one, like, because of the matchup, yeah, you could think about like getting lucky and having Roshan fall into the end zone if you're really into that type of thing. When it comes to Bigsby, I think it's a coin flip if you're going to get that, because again, it's not necessarily the overall gravy, the total yardage that you'll be looking at with Bigsby. It's going to be his ability to fall in the end zone. The Bears do have a better defense, so it's like, well, how often is Bigsby going to get into the red zone? For the Jaguars are going to get in the red zone for him to cash it in versus the Bears. When you look at the Bears offense going up against Jacksonville, there's probably going to be, even in an inconsistent offense, a better opportunity for that matchup to take place where you could get like a Roshan falling in the end zone against the Jaguars defense when we're breaking that down. All right, Commanders and Ravens. This is one of the games I was talking about, like Vegas saying something that I would not necessarily be agreeing with. So 46.5 points total in this game overall. Remember, like the higher it gets over 40, the more of a shootout that Vegas is envisioning it to be. In this case, why I find this a little odd is they have the Ravens by 8, which means that they're pushing towards the Ravens blowing out the Commanders in this game. I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. The Commanders are the best overall offense in football right now. I believe that's the case. So like that would be the one that I was like, I don't know if I would necessarily go ahead and say that like, yeah, Commanders top scoring team overall, then yards per game. The Ravens are number 1 and the Commanders are 5. So again, like the top scoring team in football, they are saying that the Ravens are going to kind of put a leash on that offense a little bit. I don't necessarily know if I would agree with that, especially because when you're looking at the Ravens defense this year, they haven't been like that type of like good Ravens defense. They've been scored upon. They've been especially thrown upon. The second worst passing defense behind Jacksonville at this point. So Jacksonville's got a bad defense. The Ravens passing defense is also bad. Their rushing defense is good. So I mean, that would lead me to say like, probably wouldn't want to be rolling B-Rob out, but B-Rob right now, he's questionable, like going to be a game time decision with his knee. If he's out, you could theoretically look at rolling Jeremy Nichols out. I think there are better running backs that hopefully you've been stashing at this point that you could be rolling out there than trying to get a guy that's going to probably be about 50% snaps. I could also see that like the Commanders are like, yeah, we're not going to try and run the football. You're really good at stopping the run. You're really bad at stopping the pass. We'll just throw it all day long. So that would mean like outside of Scary Terry chasing that 8 targets, 4 red zone target, and 70 air yard day for Zach Ertz would be in the cards when it comes to the Redskins. Because of the implied point total of this game and how I could see it turning into a little bit of shootout, that would probably mean that like it would upgrade Zay Flowers in this game to being in that wide receiver 2 range where he would be if it's a neutral script game. And Bateman would be a dart throw. I probably wouldn't be playing with any of the tight ends because of how they're using them at this point and trying to guess, like, is it going to be Andrews? Is it going to be Kohler? Is it going to be Likely? Your guess is going to be as good as mine on that one. Like it could be a Mark Andrews week if you're that owner and you're still holding on to him at this point. Otherwise, I don't know. Like if you're wondering about like how I would attack Mark Andrews at this point, if I'm still holding him, it would be bad trade. You'll package him up with somebody else and make him somebody else's problem. All right, moving on to the Cardinals and the Packers. In this one, they have 46.5 points again on this one, and you're looking at the Packers by 5, which I would tend to agree with in this one overall. With the rain, this definitely goes like Josh Jacobs and James Conner. Trey McBride, you're rolling out. You're probably rolling out your Marvin Harrison shares, like Michael Wilson, maybe because of your league size, that type of stuff. The wide receivers for the Packers. So right now you're tracking on Christian Watson being questionable with that ankle that he was supposed to like almost go on IR for. So like goes to show what rumors are worth when it comes down to that. Romeo Doubs is back. So if you have your Dontavian Wick shares, like unless magically Christian Watson is not active, at this point, like I probably wouldn't be rolling out any of the wide receivers for the Packers outside of Jaden Reed. And then you're also looking at Luke Musgrave. He's on IR. So, Tucker Kraft at this point is probably like a top 10 start. So I'm not overthinking that in general on most of the other ones when it comes down to that. So like probably the fringe ones would be like those wide receiver 3s, the Michael Wilsons and the other Packers wide receivers, and I wouldn't be rolling those out because of the game, and the weather in this one. All right, Texans and Patriots, and one last thing. Yeah, I said Packers by 5. Texans and Patriots, 44 points, and we all know that this is going to be a blowout by the Patriots, which is interesting. This is another one, like I said, like I would expect this to be closer to like the 8-point favorite that they have the Redskins. Or that they have, not the Redskins, the Ravens. In this one, they only have the Texans by 4. So they're expecting that the Patriots are really going to bog this game down. Again, the Patriots do have a good defense, and they're going to bog the game down. They're just not going to let the Texans score points. So be advised, that's what Vegas thinks is going to happen in this game. I would probably tend to lean towards there's going to be a lot of scoring opportunities for the Texans because of Drake May, and they're going to blitz Drake May into the ground. So like if you're rolling out your Texans shares, it would be a good week. Projection wise, we could talk about that. So Nico's on IR. You're looking at Bobby Trees being out. This would push Xavier Hutchinson into dart throw range when it comes down to it. Like, obviously, like Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs are probably already rolling out there at this point. Like, this would also push up Dalton Schultz if you're that type of thing. Joe Mixon is questionable. Pierce has no injury designation, so if you're going to be cute with like Dare or Akers, it ain't going to happen at this point. So like Pierce could theoretically be a roll if Mixon misses another week when it comes out. Drake May, in your 2 quarterback leagues, he's still going to be like somewhat interesting because of that theoretical nimbly bimbly. And then Ramondre is out with like a toe foot, whatever. This would push Gibson up, and similar to how I talked about like Kenneth Walker, I would not necessarily be trying to chase the rushing work when it comes to Gibson, nor would I be trying to chase the touchdowns. You're primarily looking at like potentially Drake May just checking it down to him. Probably full bell cow Antonio Gibson. That's why I would put him the nod over certain guys. If you can go out and get him with your Tank Bigsby's or your Jeremy Nichols or something like that, Gibson would be one of the guys, especially a game like he is, somewhat of a receiving back in a game where I could definitely see that the Patriots are going to end up throwing a lot more in the game overall. All right. Buccaneers and Saints, and they have the Saints by 1.5, which is very surprising to me. In a game where they have like 43 implied points. So they're not expecting a lot of scoring in this game. That's with Spencer Rattler. So again, if you have the Bucks, you can roll the Bucks out there against Spencer Rattler, the rookie. Taysom Hill is looking like he's going to be out, and there's no news on Kendre Miller. So this like still looks like you're going to get like full bell cow Alvin Kamara in this game overall. At one point, I think Shaheed popped up. He has no injury designation. Rashad White is going to be doubtful with a groin. So like full Bucky Irving in this one, not necessarily the greatest matchup in the world when it comes to overall defenses. The Saints still have a pretty good defense. I'm trying to look them up real quick. We want good defenses, not bad defenses. Right now, Saints are middle of the road, which is a little surprising. I didn't even look at this ahead of time, but they are one of the better run defenses right now. They are top 10. So if you're wondering about rolling out your Bucky Irvins, like you would be looking at full bell cow. I imagine that Sean Tucker's going to eat into that a little bit, but you're still going to be looking at pretty close to full bell cow Bucky Irving in this game for at least a 1 week rental when it comes down to that. Jalen McMillan is questionable with a hammy. Trey Palmer is going to be out with that concussion. So we can also theoretically talk about like Cade Otton being pumped up all the way into streamability when it comes to the Buccaneers in this one. Let's see. Browns and Eagles. And they have the Eagles by 3.5 this one, which is another one that's a little surprising to me because, of how poorly, well, I guess like not that surprising considering how not good that the Eagles have been so far in the season. 45.5 implied points in this one. You're looking at no news on Nick Chubb. David Njoku has no injury designation on his now knee. Devontae Smith and AJ Brown are all full goes in this one. So like wouldn't be overthinking anybody special in this one. Like if you got AJ Brown, or not AJ Brown, Amari Cooper, you could be rolling him out there in that like flex range. I don't know how much I would be trusting the offense to upgrade him in general on this one. Colts and Titans, and they have the Colts by 1.5 right now. Anthony Richardson is going to be tracking to play in this one, and they have like 44.5 implied points. Will Levis is also going to be rolling out there. So you want to get fun in this one, like you can be rolling out the Colts defense as bad as they are, and the Titans defense, and the Titans do have a little bit better defense overall. And this one, Jonathan Taylor is out, so you are looking at Sermon being a role in this case, like a volume-based RB2. I would also be looking at this if I have some of these guys pulled up. I would also be looking at if you're in deep enough leagues because of how inefficient take off the Raiders, how inefficient that Trey Sermon was last week, that you could be theoretically looking at a slight upgrade for Tyler Goodson on that 41% snaps. And this one, like he's primarily probably going to be more of the change of pace guy, but I could see that little bit of flop going on, like 50-50 split between the two of those guys. So if you're in deep enough leagues that you need to be chasing, I think there's enough there with Goodson that you could be doing that. In this one, Josh Downs is off the injury report when I looked at it last. So he's full practice today, questionable. That's what it was. Gotta look at my notes before I start talking sometimes. Right there. So gets a full practice in, but he's still questionable with that toe. And again, like Michael Pittman, he's off the injury report. He's good to go. So they go from Michael Pittman might go on IR to begin the week off to no, he's going to play without an injury designation. So who knows what's going to go on with that. So with Anthony Richardson playing, Alec Pierce is probably like a very strong role when it comes to that like wide receiver 3 type flex range. Josh Downs and Michael Pittman, how they're going to work in the offense. If it is, Anthony Richardson, I have no idea. I probably would be looking to go a different direction on them. I'm going to have a conversation with one of my co-managers when it comes to like Michael Pittman, because we were going like, yeah, we're going to roll him if it's Flacco, and then we're like, no, well, we might not if it's Anthony Richardson. So if it is Flacco, this would upgrade Michael Pittman, and it would upgrade Josh Downs. It probably downgrade Alec Pierce a little bit. In this game, probably not going to be a higher implied point total game. So unless this turns into like an absolute shootout, so I wouldn't be going after some of those guys like Alec Pierce that like, yeah, he's got as good a chance to win you a week right now as he does to lose you a week. There was a really good comment about that, like a guy that's averaging like 3.4 targets a game. Yeah, if he hits on one of those, like you're gonna have a 40-degree day, but right now you're tracking on like a 50-50 chance he's gonna hit on one of those. Regardless of who the quarterback is, I think there are better guys that I will be rather rolling him out there than that guy when it comes down to that. All right, Chargers and Broncos in this one, and you're looking at 44 points, so like not a lot of points that Vegas is looking at, and they're looking at the Chargers by 1.5, which isn't surprising. There, I imagine they're just going to go with the better quarterback and the better coach at this point between the two of those guys, but obviously not a lot of points that they're expecting to go on when it comes to these guys. So my notes on this one, like Ladd McConkey would be a guy that like I would either, if I was in a bad state when it comes to wide receivers, I'd be rolling them out. Do you want to talk about bye weeks or right here? It's the fact that in the underdog guys call it like post bye rookie bump. What goes on is during your bye week, it gives you the opportunity to actually self-scout in a way that you haven't been doing before. It also gives you an idea to go like, well, what haven't we been doing well? How can we upgrade this? So a guy like Ladd McConkey, first round draft pick, go like, well, how can we integrate the guy that's like doing good better to make us a better team? So that's why like guys like Ladd McConkey, if you're in a pinch, even though it's not necessarily a good matchup, coming out of the bye with some of these things, like the same thought process where it's like, hey, they benched Bryce Young, and then they brought in Andy Dalton. I can try and buy pieces of the offense because like I can take advantage of this same type of thought process when it comes to bye weeks. Like teams can make adjustments and they can go either direction. They can be good or bad, but I can take advantage of it at the price. So like getting a hold of Ladd McConkey, either to roll him out in that like flex wide receiver 3 range, or to just stash him on the bottom of my bench if someone already dropped him coming out of the bye. Like a lot of these guys, Adonai Mitchell, we were kind of tracking on at a certain point during the week with Josh Downs out and Michael Pittman looking out to theoretically be talking about stashing him in right now. It looks like those guys are going to play. So again, taking advantage of some of these things, like I may roll out Ladd McConkey in one of my leagues, the league that I thought I was going to beat down Michael Pittman. So to be stashing some of these guys, even if you're not necessarily looking to be rolling them out, is not necessarily a bad idea. Some of the other news that's coming on out of this is Gus Bus is going to be out. So like they did come out and say like Kimani Vidal is probably going to be leaning towards playing in this game, being active. Josh Reynolds is going to be out with a hand. So like your guess is going to be good as mine. Like right now I'd be saying like Lil Jordan Humphrey would be taking a majority of the snaps, but this could also be that breakout game with Troy Franklin. In this one, there is that opportunity. And then if you're in like really deep leagues, Lucas Kroll would be a stash. Like there's no news on Audric Estime playing in this game overall. So like when it comes to guessing on the guys that I'd be rolling out, like, J.K. Dobbins, this is a bad matchup. J.K. Dobbins, Ladd McConkey, those would probably be the two ones. And primarily with Ladd McConkey, you're chasing targets. If you're chasing some type of upside, it would still be Quentin Johnston in this one. And then when it comes to the Broncos, Javonte, just because he's volume based, and then Cortland Sutton, and that's probably about it when it comes down to those guys. All right, Raiders and Steelers, and this is 43.5 implied points, so they expected a lot. This is probably like the lowest implied point game, and they only have the Steelers by a point, which that's really interesting to me because I would bet with all the quarterback shenanigans going on and all the shenanigans with the Raiders that Vegas would have had the Steelers in an ugly game beating down the Steelers, and they don't. They think this is going to be relatively close, which again I find a little bit surprising to go along with it. So you are looking at Russ probably being the backup in this game, finally being active. Jalen Warren is questionable with a knee. He's been getting limited in all week except for Friday where he went full. Patterson's out. So if you're rolling Najee, be advised, like you may get like some type of like split in this backfield. So as inefficient as Najee's been, now he's going to have Warren back to cut into him a little bit. Aiden O'Connell is going to get the start, so like we might have to say goodbye to Gardner Minshew in this one. Zamir White, he's questionable with the groin. He did get limited in on Friday. If you're going to be chasing that, like I wouldn't be trusting the backfield when it comes to the Raiders at all between like White and Madison and Amir Abdullah, and we're still waiting on like Dylan Lobbin. They brought that like guy that I don't even remember his name in McAllister to get like a goal line carry. So like, yeah, your guess is good in mine. Adams is out with a hamstring. I did see Jacoby Myers did pop up with an ankle. Michael Mayer went on the pup with personal reasons. I don't know. So like at that point, like I don't know. You're probably looking at Brock Bowers if you're in that tight end situation that you have to be rolling out Brock Bowers in a game that I probably would not be necessarily wanting to roll out anybody. I wouldn't be rolling out Pickens at this point. Whatever's going on with his snap share is down. So like I probably, even though I would be imagining that you might get the opportunity for Najee to punch one in outside of Muth, I don't know if I would be rolling out anybody for the Steelers if I didn't have to. And then like Trey Tucker, Jacoby Myers would be desperation. And then most people out there, if you're only like carrying like one tight end and Brock Bowers is your guy, like, yeah, at that point, like he is the number one in the offense. And that's what like we generally track on when it comes to uniforms. All right. Falcons and Panthers are going to be next. And they're going to be at, where are they at? 45 implied points in this game. They do have the Panthers, or they do have the Falcons by 3, which I would maybe expect that it would have been a like slightly more higher line when it comes to the Falcons being the favorite in this one. They don't have that, which is surprising, like how inconsistent the Panthers have been overall in this one. Let's see, what do we got? We're looking at like Deontay Johnson, questionable with an ankle. Leggett has no injury designation in this one. Conversation, and this is part of the reason why I have this, so I can talk about this. So Jonathan Mingo snaps were down last week, even with Leggett being knocked out of the game. And remember, like 2 weeks ago, Mingo was primarily working out of the slot. And then last week, he led everybody with air yards on the 68% snap. So the guy, and I actually put out some effort, you were talking with someone in the comments. So with all this going on, with Adam Thielen being out and, Deontay Johnson being questionable, you have undrafted free agent Jalen Colker, out of Holy Cross. Now, I don't like the 4.57 40. I like the size. And I did remember like his name coming up. So Steve Smith, the wide receiver, like, one of the better wide receivers of all time, he broke down Jalen Coker and said Coker is probably the best route runner, in the draft. Now, I'm a D-line coach, my opinion on this is going to be very limited. Yeah, he does good, does run good routes. How that transitions to the NFL level at this point, like, because we can actually start tracking theoretically the possibility, and this is mostly in your deeper leagues, the possibility that we can get a usage flop when it comes to like Coker. Now, he would only be in that like wide receiver 3 type range, unless like we can start talking about like Deontay. If Deontay's actually out with an ankle, which right now I would be tracking on him playing, that would be the only way I'd be rolling out Coker. But at this rate, like in your deeper leagues, yeah, Coker would be a stash. In your dynasty leagues, he should probably be a stash at this point when it comes down to tracking on him. Now, Tommy Tremble is out with a concussion. Like Sanders, I'm probably not interested in when it comes down to that, guys. And nothing else when it comes to the Falcons. So I would be expecting that there's a possibility that the Falcons can blow the Panthers out. And that means that we're going to get that like fantasy-friendly script when it comes to the pass catchers for the Panthers in this game. Overall, when it comes to the Falcons, I'm just going to be rolling out like my main guys. Probably looking at Mooney, London, even Pitts, and then just Bijan at this point. Like that, shouldn't be too difficult. There's no one that I'm probably going to be overthinking. When it comes to like your Mooney shares and your Pitts shares, like they would be in that like range of like, do I have to roll these guys out? Do I have better options when it comes down to that? And we'll talk about like a better option right here in a second when we talk about the Lions and the Cowboys. So you're looking at 48.5 points. I think this is the top scoring game of the week when it comes to the Vegas lines. And they also have the Lions and the Cowboys at the Cowboys by 5-point favorite, which I will just say, based off of how inconsistent the Cowboys have been, like, and how somewhat good the Lions have been, I find that a little interesting that they do have it like basically a coin flip when it comes down to these two guys when you're looking at it. So let's see. Uh, you can probably roll Tolbert out in this game and with my notes because the Lions passing defense is not good. Overall, I think they're sixth overall in passing. So with that vacated opportunity and higher implied points, like, yeah, if you went out and you spent on Tolbert, like this would be the week to be out to go rolling him out there and try and chase that dragon when it comes down to it. When you're looking at that, and then Rico, he's probably going to be in that like low end running back too, like more volume based. And the Lions do have a good run defense, and that would be probably if I had the ability to go a different direction just from like rushing standpoint, it would probably be that. But in this game, because of the implied Vegas point total, you're still going to have red zone opportunities when it comes to Dowdle. If you have to choose like between him and some of the other guys that are out there when it comes down to that. All right. And then point total wise for the Lions, Jameson Williams, he probably should be a weekly start when it comes to like the boom bust land type of guy. And then, everybody else is going to be, basic guys that I'd be rolling out like Montgomery, Gibbs, the Sun God, Laporta. Like unless you have like your Brock Bowers at this point and you're worried about that. But for the most part, like you paid for him, you should be rolling him out. All right, moving on to the Bengals and the Giants. This one's going to be a little interesting because the Giants have been playing better and the Bengals have not. 45 implied point total for this game. And they do have the Bengals by 4.5, which again, this would be another one that I think it'd be sneaky. I think it could be higher points because the Bengals defense has not been good for the season. And we can bring them up and we can see that I am obviously not talking. You're looking at the 7th worst overall defense when it comes to points or yards. And then when you're looking at points, they are the 2nd worst one. So like, yeah, even with Neighbors being out another week with a concussion, this is going to put like Steve Slayton in dart throw land based off what he did last week. Devin Singletary is limited with that groin. He is going to be a game time decision. So like if you're waiting to find out if you're going to be rolling out like your Tyrone Tracy, you're going to be waiting until kickoff to find out. And I can probably look at when these games are. So like that's going to be the Sunday night game. So like be advised if you're waiting until that moment to find out if you're going to be able to roll out your Tyrone Tracy at all. Like you should have a different guy available either in the Bills game versus the Jets, or like if you're wondering if you should be rolling out like Moss or Chase Brown in this one. And then finally, let's see, do I have any other notes on this one? I do not. Oh yeah, Zach Moss is off the injury report with his ankle. Chase Brown did pop up surprisingly during the week with a questionable designation with a quad. Coach did come out and say like they were a little surprised, and it's like nothing that big of a deal. All right, this is the strategy portion that I was going to talk about, like Bills and Jets, and they do have the Jets by a point. I'm still not entirely sure if I'm going to be rolling my Jets defense shares out against the Bills because the Bills have been all over the place, and they do have this game 47.5 implied points, which again is a little surprising considering how bad both these offenses have looked. You are looking at James Cook being questionable with a foot. He had no practice today. This is a Monday night game. They got one more practice to go in, so like you might be able to get a limited designation tomorrow. Between Ray Davis and Ty Johnson, I'd probably be leaning towards Ty Johnson because how he's been used in the game. He has operated as the number 2 back. He's got the passing work, and he's also got red zone work. So he was at 34% snaps against Houston last week. He would be the guy that I would be leaning towards being more of the role. It does not mean because of the script, and you see like Ray Davis down to 3% snaps. It does not necessarily mean that they aren't going to integrate Ray Davis more into the offense. But if there was going to be a guy I'd be rolling out there, it would be Ty Johnson. So you could be looking at, if you're waiting on Tyrone Tracy, with Singletary, you're still going to have the ability to pivot based off the news of James Cook tomorrow towards Ty Johnson. And then if you're James Cook owner and you're going to wait till the last second, you're going to have to be going after James Cook. Now, there's a lot more news when it comes to the Bills and their pass catchers, because you're looking at Khalil Shakur missed Friday with that ankle. Curtis Samuel popped up with that toe that he's been dealing with. I'll talk about him here in a second. Matt Collins was there with a shoulder. So you could get the right combination of all these guys going together where, like, this is a Keon Coleman. We remember, like, this is going to be the Jets defense. If I'm worried about that, the guy with all of this that would be a very sneaky role, if we get the right movement of guys around, it would be Curtis Samuel. He can be used as a running back. So, like, if you get James Cook being out and Khalil Shakur is out, and Curtis Samuel does pop up like without an injury designation tomorrow, like, yeah, now we can start talking about like sneaky cute Curtis Samuel being like Debo-esque when it comes to the Bills in this game. And then over on the Jets side, like Aaron Rodgers, whatever knee, ankle, hip, hamstring, whatever he's dealing with, he was questionable. Tyler Conklin did pop up with a hip in general in this one. The Bills have been bad on defense this year. So like this would be why this script would be like so difficult to predict in general. And hopefully that's the passing to bring them up. The Bills have not necessarily been good. So they're not like the good Bills defense. Passing yards, they haven't been giving up a lot. They've been run on a lot. So like when it comes to the Jets, like Breece Hall would be a pretty good role. Like you should feel pretty good about rolling him out in general in this one. And then who knows what's going to go on with the Jets together, like trying to predict and take advantage of unpredictability. When it comes to firing the head coach, they did demote their offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett. But this is Aaron Rodgers running the offense that he wants to run the way that he wants to run. If you're checking on all that stuff, and then as bad as they look last week when it comes to the Bills, the biggest one like that I would still probably feel like comfortable rolling would be Dalton Kincaid, and that's just because like he's a tight end, he can't break my heart. So that's about all I got for the Grift this week. If you're wondering, Vegas said 46.5 implied points when it comes to the 49ers and the Seahawks, and they had the 49ers by 4 in that one. So close enough for government work if you're into that type of thing. But anyway, I will be back on Sunday night with the sausage, and that's about it.